I'm Amir Zaveri.
And I'm Annie Kroll, and this is Then and Now, a podcast focusing on how trends have shifted through the decades.
We're here today with Carolyn Becker, a fashion influencer getting most of her styles from thrifty finds rather than the big-name department stores. We're chatting with her today about her own style, being online, and the big changes happening in fashion. Carolyn, welcome. Just to start off, tell me about what's your biggest fashion snafu of all time? What's something that you thought was on trend or an outfit that you loved at the time, but looking back, you wish never really happened?
I thought several years ago that I thought socks with flats, like athletic socks with flats, were a thing. I thought it was cute, yet kind of practical and funky and kind of avant-garde. But I look back on it and I think to myself, so I am petite, I'm 4'9", so I can wear kid shoes and adult shoes. And at the time I have this picture in my mind of me rocking these kids shoes that were like black and chunky, like kind of like Mary Jane's, but not slim on the front of the toes, like kind of very round like a cap. And then me wearing these like ankle athletic socks. And I just think back on this, and maybe I could figure out how to do it differently today with like a sheer sock. But this look that I had when I was in college, it's one fashion mistake that's just like burned into my memory of like, don't do that ever again. It was terrible, and the socks got dirty easily. They were white. It was like the worst decision I've ever made. And I wore it several times. I thought it was cute. And I just look back on it. I'm like, oh, Carolyn, like, why?
So I'm 5'1", so I'm a short girl too. I totally understand. And I love flats, but I cannot imagine wearing flats with socks.
It was terrible. Like, I don't know who let me walk out like that. I was in college at the time, so maybe I was like, I don't know. We were all kind of figuring out who we were at the time. And it was just the whole look too. I was wearing these like skinny jeans that I had like tapered myself, so they were kind of wonky and they were like light washed. And I don't know what I was thinking. I thought it was punk. I'm never again.
You love having some independence when you're in college, truly. And I think what's interesting is that, Carolyn, you really have redeemed yourself, so don't worry about it.
Oh, thank goodness.
Something else that both Amir and I are interested in is, how did you get into thrifting in the first place? Where did that passion come from?
So I feel like I say this a lot because it feels like it actually happened. I feel like I was born at a Goodwill store. I grew up thrifting with my parents. They believed that it was, one, they thought it was, realistic and economically smart as a way to save money and in order to just shop with purpose and think with a conscious effort. I would always go to the thrift store with my parents. We went to all the Goodwills and all the different stores in the D.C. area. My tomboy style back in middle school was crafted by way of Goodwill finds. And ever since, it's always just been any thrift store have just been top of mind places for me to find items that I need. It didn't really happen later on in life. It's always just been a part of my practice, a part of my shopping habits.
I love that. I love that. Looking for the find and spending time finding that perfect piece. That's like what shopping is really all about.
Exactly. Amen to that. This thrift hunt that people say, the thrift journey, it's truly the difference between thrifting and shopping. It's an interesting thing, and I've been thinking about the concept and the semantics of both. Thrifting is more about an activity. It's a journey. It's an experience. It's a method of finding the pieces that you either want to experiment with or pieces that will really last through time. And then third, things that you don't want to pay a lot for, but you want to be of quality. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole experience. And then shopping, for me, some say it could be also an activity, but for me personally, it sounds more like a task. Like I need to go grocery shopping, or I need to go to the mall to go shopping. They're just two very different connotations. The thrifting has like an allure to it to me, like an excitement behind the verb. Does that make sense?
No, totally. It's like you don't really know what you're going to find, and that's part of the adventure, which I love.
Exactly.
Looking at your own personal fashion today, how would you say it's evolved over the years? And looking at, what pieces you have in your wardrobe, what would you say your fashion is if you were to describe it in a few words?
Few words is not is a challenge, but I'll try and do that because I feel like I'm trying to reduce my closet too. So simplicity, the better. But first, I'll say my style has definitely evolved throughout the years to become more sophisticated and mature, just by way of growing up and having a career that is adulting, hashtag adulting. But I've always maintained a sense of punkness to it. When I was in high school, I was a punk rocker. I had Liberty spikes and studded belts and fishnets, and I've tried to keep that side of me present in some way, shape, or form by way of pattern mixing, vibrant colors, throwing back to my favorite decade, the 80s, via blazers or fabrics. So that has remained consistent, but I feel like I've been a lot more polished just based on the environment and me maturing. If I was to describe myself, I would say, well, my Instagram handle, I feel like describes me perfectly. It's like I'm a petite punk, but maybe I would add like sophisticated or petite chic punk. I am punk that's toned down a little bit, or I'm socially acceptably punk.
I love that. And honestly, who doesn't want to be in the 80s at this point with all that
Yes.
color? Oh, stunning. Just love to see it. We are curious, though, how do you think thrifting and the perception of it has maybe changed since the 80s and 90s? Maybe when our parents were growing up, it wasn't as common that you would see people going to thrift stores and picking out the best little deals that they could and still looking fantastic. How has that changed?
It is definitely changed quite a bit. When I was first on Instagram and on social media posting about my thrift finds, when you look up other hashtags or see who else is tagging Goodwill and other thrift brands, the pool of influencers was actually quite small. There was a handful of us that would post consistently. We were not a hard crew to find, but especially these past few years with conscious shopping and sustainable fashion really making its way into the headlines and making its way into big brand practices, I personally am seeing thrift influencers triple or quadruple. The community is getting bigger by the day, and I think that the perception of thrifting, at least with millennials and those who now have spending power but also have style, are seeing a thrift as a smarter way to shop, not just because of you're finding the unique pieces, but because of the environmental impact. The shopping consciously and with a sustainable hat on is definitely, it's something that we're all focusing on now and paying attention to. And I hope that continues. I hope that thrift is not just a trend, that it's an actual behavior change. But right now, the perception of thrifting is becoming quite positive. The stigma might still be there with some communities, but with others, I can see it going away and or gaining in popularity.
Feel like it's not just a trend that's gonna be gone in a couple of years. I think it's a whole new mindset. I think people are kind of tired of buying clothes that just don't last. Forever 21, you may have heard that they're now bankrupt. And I think that in part is due to a shift in consumer shopping habits. I think people are tired of buying cheap pieces that last just a few washes and then they throw it away and then they're finding something else. You want to find something that has some history, that's durable, that has some wear behind it.
Exactly, exactly.
I want to touch on, your online life as an Instagram influencer. Sometimes it can be pretty hard to stand out from the crowd there. How do you stay authentic to your own style and your own, core? Sometimes a lot of people talk about it's so hard to show the actual reality versus the filter of Instagram.
So for my own platform, one of my big things is just being honest and transparent and authentic. I focus a lot on my outfit posts, specifically everything that I wear that's thrifted. And I try, at least on my pages, and everybody has their own outlook and a way of portraying themselves that and all of them work. There's no wrong way to do it. But for mine, it's being real, providing honest captions. I prop my phone up against various objects sometimes so that I can put on self-timer and take my own outfit pictures. And I write that, I tell my community that, and I think that it creates a perception of reality of that this person is real, or I'm just doing what I do and trying to be economical. And you don't need to, while I have paid for photographers before because I love photo shoots, they are great for capturing outfits, but sometimes you can't schedule it or you can't pay for it. Sometimes the budget doesn't allow. So I just try to be honest and consistent with it and showcase my finds in a way that is just authentically me.
I also wish more people were on brand with that, Carolyn. I think the fact that you're honest about how hard it is to set up a photo that you're taking yourself and making sure that you look good in it. It's not easy. And I wish more people on Instagram especially were honest about how difficult it is to get sort of that footage and the right photo, if you will, and the right angles. So I love that that's in your caption.
I will say that I think for me, thrift influencers can be very different from other fashion influencers, not just because of our shopping habits and not wanting to buy all the time and showcase a different outfit in each picture. But I think it's the overall mentality or the overall way of thinking of saving money or just spending in different ways. For me, thrift, it's not just about style and the planet, but it's also about ways to save money so that it can do other things like travel or other ventures that I'm passionate about. So I think that applies to maybe sometimes I have the DIY mindset. I have I can do it, I'll figure it out myself. And I think that a lot of other thrift influencers have that mentality as well. DIY, saving money, shopping, economically. It all goes hand in hand.
What a great community that you're part of, truly. I can't even imagine that you guys are all there and doing it so often and doing it so well. So thank you, Carolyn, so much for talking to us. You were absolutely amazing for kicking us off on our first episode of Then and Now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is Then and Now with Amira Zaveri
and Annie Kroll.
Check out upcoming episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.